Hey guys, let's get more news about Steelers, but first, don't forget to subscribe and leave your like. Steelers Arthur Smith rejected AFC foe before joining Pittsburgh staff, reports. The Pittsburgh Steelers identified Arthur Smith as their preferred choice for offensive coordinator this offseason. The Athletic's Diana Rooney reported the feeling was more than mutual. Rooney wrote that Smith was one of the coaches the New York Jets spoke to about possibly being part of the play-calling process. Smith, though, ultimately chose to join the Steelers' coaching staff instead. Pro Football Talk's Mike Florio reported on July 17 that Smith wasn't interested in the position with the Jets in part because the role wasn't clear. The job Smith now has, Steelers' offensive coordinator, is the one Smith wanted, Florio wrote. Once it was offered, that was that. The past 3 years, Smith served as head coach of the Atlanta Falcons. Prior to that, he spent a decade on the Tennessee Titans coaching staff. That decade included a 2-year stint as the team's offensive coordinator from 2019 to 20. NFL pundits argued the Steelers needed to hire an innovative offensive coordinator, perhaps a coach from the Sean McVay tree. Instead, the Steelers went a route they've gone in the past, hiring an ex-head coach. While that was uninspiring to some, he appears to be a great fit on paper. It should also be encouraging to Steelers fans that he identified Pittsburgh as the offense he wanted to coach. Smith also made that decision before the team's upgrades at quarterback. During the 2 years Smith served as the Titans' offensive coordinator, Tennessee finished top 10 in rushing attempts. They were second in rushing attempts during the 2020 season. The Titans were second in rushing yards and second or third in yards per carry both seasons as well. Establishing that kind of ground attack is something the Steelers hope to do this fall. The running game has been a strong part of the organization's history, but the Steelers haven't finished better than 13th in rushing yards since the team's last Super Bowl appearance. Smith's offense in Tennessee featured Derrick Henry. That greatly helped the unit become one of the best rushing attacks in the league. Smith doesn't have an all-pro running back such as Henry in Pittsburgh. But the backfield duo of Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren is expected to receive plenty of touches. Initially, the plan of a strong running game was going to help Kenny Pickett develop. But now the Steelers hope it will return Russell Wilson to the level of play he reached with the Seattle Seahawks. During his first 6 seasons with the Titans, Smith coached tight ends. So, that's the other position group that is expected to be more involved in Pittsburgh's offense this fall. Pat Freiermuth experienced a breakout season in 2022 with 63 catches and 732 yards. But while dealing with injuries during 2023, he had just one game with at least 50 yards last season. That should not be the case in 2024. The Steelers could also involve young tight ends Darnell Washington and Connor Hayward more as pass catchers. Unless the team makes a wide receiver trade before the season, the Steelers hope the involvement of the running backs and tight ends in the passing game will make up for the lack of a true WR2. The Steelers roster only has one wide receiver who had at least 210 receiving yards last season. Look, 7 Steelers join Russell Wilson, Justin Fields for off-season workout. When Russell Wilson and the Pittsburgh Steelers take the field at training camp 1 week from now, it'll hardly be the first time they've been on the grass together. Even beyond OTAs and minicamp, Wilson and a handful of Steelers players just wrapped up a week of training. Wilson shared this photo with the caption, "We'll see you in Latrobe," showing a number of Pittsburgh players. His Instagram account shows a montage of photos from their sessions. Presumably, based on the palm trees and other photos of Wilson working out at UCLA, this took place in California. Tagged in the photo are WR's Roman Wilson, Marquez Callaway, Van Jefferson, and Calvin Austin III. Quarterbacks Kyle Allen, Justin Fields, and John Reese Plumlee also appear while tight end/fullback Connor Hayward was also on hand. Wilson included. That's 8 Steelers training together ahead of the new year, not even counting RB Najee Harris, who recently spent time working out with Russell Wilson. TJ Watt commented on Wilson's photo, writing, "It's time. For the receivers, they're critical reps to get in before camp. Wilson is a rookie trying to make a splash while Callaway, Jefferson, and Austin are fighting for reps, roles, and ultimately a spot on the roster. It will make for one of the biggest Steelers training camp battles as the team looks for a starting receiver opposite George Pickens. Perhaps the team still adds an external option, but the team will begin by evaluating who is currently on its 91-man roster. Hayward is hoping to carve out a versatile role under new offensive coordinator Arthur Smith. An H-back type, he can align all over the field. Hayward is searching for bigger plays after being limited to an underneath option in 2023, averaging under 7.5 yards per catch and not finding the end zone. Fields is the team's number 2 quarterback entering camp. It's been framed as healthy competition, and to their credit, Fields and Wilson have handled things well. But Wilson is the huge favorite to be the Steelers' starting quarterback to open the year. Allen and Plumlee also got an important reps with receivers they'll be throwing to throughout camp. Allen is a veteran expected to be the Steelers' number 3 quarterback, while Plumlee is an athletic rookie needing to maximize his chances at the bottom of the depth chart. It's notable George Pickens isn't in attendance, though he did train with Fields at an event in Texas last week. Who would Steelers deal in trade for Brandon Aiyuk? If you're a Steelers fan on the internet reading about the Steelers, you're probably reading a lot about Brandon Aiyuk. The San Francisco 49ers wide receiver recently formally asked for a trade, so obviously he's coming here. He wore a Pirates hat in that one Instagram story or something, after all, didn't he? The odds of the Steelers trading for Aiyuk are, I think, incredibly low, and that's largely on the 49ers. They don't have as much incentive to trade for him anymore, since they can't benefit this year from draft picks. That's why many people discussing a possible trade for Aiyuk are now talking about trading players. So let's say the Steelers really are in the market to acquire Brandon Aiyuk via trade, and they know that they have to trade a decent player away to get him. Who would they really be willing to trade? I've heard Alex Highsmith's game come up, though more so early on than recently. The more popular name in recent days has been Nick Herbig, the third outside linebacker behind Highsmith. Other names I've heard in Aiyuk trade discussions are on the offensive line, from Dan Moore Jr. to James Daniels. Daniels himself said the Steelers won't extend him and basically expect to lose him next year. The 49ers may well expect to lose Aiyuk in 2025 as well. This might actually be the most plausible trade, although I admit I haven't given a great deal of thought as to whether the 49ers need a starting guard. But we're talking about a starter-for-starter trade in the final years of their deals from whom they will move on. Daniels is still pretty young, only a few months older than Aiyuk. The Steelers would still have to figure out what draft compensation they can deal, but they can get by without Daniels. Nate Herbig could start at right guard, or potentially rookie Mason McCormick. Or Spencer Anderson, potentially, who worked at guard in the spring. Of course, this isn't going to happen, most likely, trading for Brandon Aiyuk, at all, but hey, training camp's coming. And you fan? What do you think of the situation of Brandon Aiyuk? Leave your opinion in the comments.